Working with DFS case managers, I am so impressed by how they truly go to bat for the whole family. They don't want to take the kids. They want to get those kids reunified with their families. So we're going to interview a lady named Alicia, and she was a case manager at one time for one of the families that's here. It was very interesting what she said about being able to work with finding the family.
Definitely believe the hand of God was always on my life, but I never knew it. I just felt within me that there was something bigger or greater. It has to be something more than what I was experiencing. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, and it was a nice environment. Wasn't a lot of crime or anything like that. But then we ended up getting evicted, but I was extremely young, like 5, 6 years old. So I wasn't aware of what was really going on. And we moved in the projects called Hampton Homes. Everything started off kind of how it was before, but then I noticed some just changes in my mom's behavior and everything. And she was on drugs, she was on crack. And it really it destroyed us as children. Our daily needs started to lack. Not having food, lights getting turned off. You know, my mom never worked when we moved into the projects. We lived off of social services, and there was times where I didn't want to go home. She got put into a mental institution for 2 months. It was 4 of us at the time, and we had to fend for ourselves. The community helped us out so that social services wouldn't take us. My older sister, helped cook and provide meals and make sure we had clean clothes until my mom got out. But it just got worse, and my mom had 2 additional children when she barely could buy Pampers and milk, and she would kick us out of the house in the dead of winter. It could be 12 degrees outside, and she would not let us back in, and it's at night. And we'll have to go to the store and beg the clerk. They were familiar with us, and they would open up a bag of Pampers or give us a gallon of milk, or we'll go to neighbors if she wanted a cigarette and she didn't have a cigarette. We wasn't getting back in until we got her a cigarette. It just got to the point where social services stepped in and removed us from her home. We moved into my grandma's house, and she was a Christian. She was devoted to church, and we're used to not having boundaries. She loved us, but we wasn't used to that type of love, that agape love that she knew from Christ. But we just rejected it because of just the pollution and stuff that we had in our hearts from our environment. I had a daughter at a young age, 16, 17, got pregnant. And I immediately wanted to move out of my grandma's house because we just bumped heads, and I moved out by the time I was 18. I never had a desire to stay in the projects. I ended up getting a job like 40 minutes from where I was living, and I needed a stable car. So God connected me with a gentleman in High Point, and I was able to receive a decent car that was able to actually get me to my job as well as get me out of the projects, because when you make a certain amount of income, you no longer qualify. So I was able to transition out of the projects, and I ended up moving into a better place to stay for me and my daughter. My plan was to stay at the factory because I was making really good money. And I met an older guy, and he would tell me just the goodness of God. You know, he really would, we'll talk about the Bible and everything. And I just it was different. So I actually rededicated my life and was like, you know what, I want to become more serious, with my relationship with God. And from that moment, everything changed. It was like a pivotal, just a 180. When I got into church, I was able to see families and to see the value of how God originally created families to look like. And that was very challenging to me because that was something that I wasn't used to. As I, used the skills and stuff of going to Bible study and life groups, and when you do life with people, you see the lifestyle, you see the stuff that you don't get to see in church, how they talk to their children. And I had a great mentor. Her and her husband was a great example of what a Christ-like family was. Were they perfect? No. However, they really showed me the love of Christ that I was able to pour back into my daughter. God has a plan. And of course, the enemy, he's in the lurkings trying to, stir up some stuff. So So it's like as soon as I decided to take my relationship with God serious, I ended up getting laid off. And now I've been on the job for about 5 years, and this is when the recession hit. And I remember like it was yesterday. It was as if a peace came over me. I just like felt from God that I'm gonna provide for you. I lost everything. My car got repoed. I had to move out. I had to move in with a good friend. When I got laid off, I decided, you know what, let me go back to school to pursue to get my GED. Well, it took me 2.5 years. I walked in rain, sleet, hail, and snow, like it, and even with my daughter. But I can say, through it all, I had joy. I had joy. I count it all as joy. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but just really seeing, the hand of God. When I look back, and it was rough. It was rough. There was times, when I wanted to give up, and I didn't. God blessed us, because typically when you're on unemployment, it's a short time frame, and I got unemployment for 2 years, the full amount. And just when they were about to stop it, one of the youth pastors stated his grandmother was looking for someone part-time to be a child care teacher there. She gave me the job, and then he called me back and was like, well, my grandma actually liked you so much, she want to offer you a full-time job. So I was able to get the full-time job. As I stated, I was in school getting my GED. Then I started to pursue to get my associate's degree. And then she stated while I was in school to get certified as an early child care teacher, to have my credentials in early child care, to make me be able to get a lead position in the classroom. And I was able to do that. I stayed there for a few years, and then I transitioned to a larger facility in early child care, and took over a lead position there. And I ended up getting my associate's degree in social work, and then I transferred to a university. And one day I got a call from our evangelism pastor, and he stated, could you come over to the church? And I'm like, oh, am I in trouble? And he was like, just come on over. So I get there, and he was just like, well, we just wanted to kind of get an update on how things been going and everything from last year. And I'm like, things are going great. I'm finishing up getting my associate's degree. And then he was like, well, we know, because I didn't have a car at the time. I was still catching the bus. I was able to move out from my friend's house and whatnot. So he was like, well, we told you we brought you here for this. He said, but we actually are going to bless you with a car. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm just like going crazy. Like, oh my goodness, are you serious? And the blessing of this is typically someone has to sponsor you. And you have to go through like a 6-week program. Then you have to pay for your tags and titles. I didn't do anything. They told me when to pick this car up and handed me the keys. The car that they gave me right around the time I was about to graduate, the transmission went out. So here it is. We're like, okay, here we go again. But we defeated one battle. We're going to defeat this next battle, because we seen what God can do. So for 2 weeks, I walked to work, rode my bike to work. And then within that 2-week span, I was able to save up some money, and God blessed me with an even better car. I finished and got my bachelor's degree, and my desire was to always I want to move away. I want to go somewhere different. I want to, just have a different experience, but I want Chicago, New York, California, Seattle. And then God was like, Springfield, Missouri? So then I'm like, let me Google this. And I Googled it. And I'm like, okay, it's naturey, that, city, nature. Okay, I think I'll be okay. So I just packed up all of my stuff, and I moved to Springfield, Missouri. Didn't know anybody out here. A week while I was here, I was at a car wash, and I saw Life Church, and I'm like, I saw people waving in the parking lot. As soon as I walked through the door, I met a older woman by the name of Sherry, and her family took me in, open arms. You're not going to be alone for Christmas. You're not going to be alone for Thanksgiving. Come to family functions. I joined a life group that I was able to connect with, to have that fellowship and that family, that support. And it has been a phenomenal experience. I came here for a foster care social worker position. The job that I work for, Presbyterian Children Homes and Services, a Christian-based organization, and First Lady Deb came to present her organization to our, facility to see whether or not we wanted to start using their resources, finding the family. And I was super excited to see a facility, an organization that was truly Christ-centered, that had a heart and passion to help marriages just rebuild, and coming from the system and not really having that, and just kind of being able to come alongside families and even marriages to be reunited the way Christ designed it to be was just breathtaking. I mean, breathtaking. Yes, there's other services and stuff out there that God can use, but the world needs Christ. We need Christ. We all do. I definitely believe the difference is Christ. He's our creator. And if we want to know how to function, we have to go back to the manual. And as I stated, other organizations have some great tools, not saying that they're not effective. However, but we have to go back to the one that created us, and finding the family uses the manual, which is the Word of God, to restore and bring families back to the origin that God created them to be. And that's the services that Finding the Family provides. I definitely believe it would have tapped into her faith and allow her to see herself as God created her to see, fearfully and wonderfully made, the apple of his eye, beloved. But I feel like that Finding the Family could have came in, come alongside of her, and just kind of shown her that she's more than, being out on the street. She's more than using crack cocaine. God has a greater purpose for her. So I just feel like, Finding the Family would have been a great resource that would have definitely helped her get back on that path, so that she could, live a great, fruitful life.
Tell whoever's going to listen to this why you call me First Lady Deb, because they're going to go.
Okay, so back home, I have a first lady. Her name is Deb, and Bishop Brian J. Pierce. They are my pastors back home. And your style, your just charisma, you're just outgoing. You're beautiful. You're radiant. You're inspiring. You're loving. You're caring. And you just put me in, you just remind me of my first lady back home. So it just naturally came out of me when we were talking one day, or I think it was in a meeting, and I'm just like, First Lady Deb, and it just naturally just fits who God has created you to be, a first lady, to just, be a light and just encourage and inspire so many other women.